Hello everyone, welcome back to the Artless Dialogue. Hi Ash, how's it going?
Good. How about yourself, Saud?
Yes, good. Busy as always. What's been on your mind recently?
Well, I was reading this interesting article about sort of the progression of robotics. So, robotics obviously has been around for a long time, and back to the Terminator movies where people thought robots would take over the world, and combined with AI, and obviously, we'll try not to make every topic about AI because it's one of these things. All roads lead to Rome. All roads seem to lead to AI these
Yeah.
days. But so we'll try and kind of keep it robotics. But obviously, that's been used for manufacturing and things like that for quite some time. But we are starting to kind of see almost a step change in robotics that are truly sort of autonomous.
Yep.
And that's the kind of key thing, because often, robotics, especially in the manufacturing industry, car manufacturing, etc., robots are programmed to do X, Y, and Z,
Hmm.
and they do it very well. And if you want to watch an interesting video for like, that just it's one of these videos you watch and you just stare at it for hours, is watching the Amazon bots. There's a Amazon warehouse in the UK, and I imagine it's the same across the world, where it's all pretty much robots,
I think I've seen that one. Yeah.
and they run on these rails, and it's all just it's a model. It's a very complex model, so there's no sort of intelligence here. They're just running at this model, but they just when you look at this thing, there's thousands of these things just moving around, perfect symmetry. It's like an orchestra. But we're now talking about kind of robots that are truly sort of moving forward. So
Hmm.
there's one interesting enough. They called it R2D3, which
Okay.
is very close to
Me
R2D2
too.
for the Star Wars fans, and it's kind of now combining sort of artificial intelligence type level of learning
Hmm.
and robotics. So you give it a broad sort of, this is your job, and you've got robots where it's there to help people who are, say, alone.
Hmm.
And you might get, elderly people who are struggling with depression,
Hmm.
and they can't, for example, take care of a pet. But a pet is seen as a support animal, so that actually they want the benefit of a pet without feeding it on all the stuff that is. So there's another bot called Tombot,
Okay.
which effectively acts like a pet. So it has the ability to kind of monitor moods. It looks at individuals. It does all the kind of the sort of feels like a pet rather than it's a robot where you tell it to do something and it just does it. This thing kind of is thinking almost and watching and observing and then responding.
Hmm.
And then it also looks at your response to it, and it says, oh, you responded well when I did that, or you didn't care less when I did that. So actually, I'm going to do more of that. So it's almost like you kind of if you reward it like you like a kid, like a
Yeah.
child. If you reward a child when they do something good, they'll do more good stuff. If it does something naughty and you can't help yourself but laugh, then it just continues to do the naughty thing because it thinks it's entertaining. So when it throws its bowl of food at you and you're like,
Mhm.
one of the dad or the mum starts laughing, and then they're like, "Oops, I've just taught this kid
Should
now
do
to
that
throw the
again.
bowl of
Hmm.
do that again." So there's this real kind of evolution in robotics, and I kind of see it definitely like it's like a reinvigoration of moving down that road, because you've probably all seen Elon Musk's robot and Honda's robotics, and they're all kind of in a nice possible way trying to emulate humans almost.
Yep.
No apparent reason. Then we just want to create a robot that can climb stairs, or so there's like a weird race to try and create a lifelike robot. But we're now seeing robotics really focusing on true problems, functional problems. And that example I gave, there's thousands and thousands of individuals, UK, and if you look globally, there's millions who are living alone, who are really struggling.
Yep.
And there's no capacity in the healthcare system for someone to spend hours with them. And these pets then can do things like monitor the health. They can monitor their heart rate. They can monitor if the person's fallen over, and then go, right, that person's now fallen over. I need to call someone. So if you can kind of see, it's really now starting to touch on, the movies and future robotics where you buy a robot that lives with you,
Hmm.
that gets to know you, and actually evolves. So each robot then is different after a few years because it's based on your particular needs
Yeah,
rather than it's been programmed centrally and it will only do what it's programmed to do. So that's kind of an example.
that's quite interesting.
Mhm.
So a lot of things in my head. First
Yeah,
thing being that, so you mentioned, why do you want robots to look like humans, right? Why
yeah,
do we want them? So like, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just trying to make life easy for us. Like, we're trying to solve
yeah,
problems where
yeah,
Amazon's using robots to reduce errors, to improve efficiency, to
yeah,
ensure 24-hour no break distribution
yeah,
systems.
yeah,
Um, the example you gave is a very it's one to think about in terms
yeah,
of personal support, buddies, or emotional support
yeah,
for people who live alone, vulnerable people.
yeah,
The functions that you shared were quite good in terms of checking their health indicators and
yeah,
reporting that to the authorities when need be. The risk that came to mind over there was that as you start interacting with robots, you may start distancing yourself from the world.
yeah,
Before, when you talk to someone from customer service, you'd have a conversation about what went wrong and how they can
yes,
help, and you'd
yeah,
end up, but if that problem got resolved, which it usually does, you'd end
yeah,
up staying a lifelong loyal customer,
yeah,
right? And you'd be happy, the other party would be happy.
yeah,
Now it's usually chatbots, and you don't
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah,
get your problem solved,
yeah,
and you're like, I'm not going to use the service again.
yeah,
So while I agree that robots and AI is the way forward,
yeah,
we need a lot more people who are not technologists to be
yeah,
involved in the process so that the
yeah, yeah,
human side of things can
yeah.
also be catered for.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely right about the human side. I think the other bit though is around you're looking for someone to talk to, the human element.
Mm,
I think that's sometimes cultural as well. Back to what we were talking about in a previous episode around kind of cultural shifts, because just like when mobile banking came in or contactless came in, there's a trust issue.
mm,
That's really the underlying thing. If you kind of took away the surface, you're like, well, do I trust this robot to
yeah,
look after my gran? Do I trust this robot, or would I prefer a human? Now, even though if you looked at the stats and it says humans make more mistakes
mm,
and are likely to, not monitor your gran for 24/7,
mm,
there's a generational thing where, yeah, but you're used to the human doing the thing. So you want the human to continue to do the thing. Now, the next generation who are born to this, who, this might be the norm to them, then if they were born and when they were babies, they had a robot wandering around the house doing stuff and their interactions with the robot were at birth, then when they
yeah,
got older, they wouldn't question, robotics. Could they just go, well, that's just part of life.
yep,
So there's always a generation where you're in the middle of the transition where, robotics are now moved to a point where the mechanical stuff,
mm,
we used to be a limiter. So that's been resolved. Then there was the intelligence, and now AI is resolving that. So now it's really got, the two things have come together quite timely, where you can have that kind of futuristic robotics where this thing can wander around and not just walk into a wall, like the jokes of when, I don't know if you had one, but we got one just for a laugh, the Hoover thing that goes around your house.
I don't
And
have it. I've
honestly,
seen it. I've seen it around a lot, but
I mean, it did not last long, but it was just for a novelty. It wandered around the kitchen and then obviously it ran into a wall a few times or it got stuck on a carpet or it got full. It was just like a really basic errors and then this thing stopped. So
bad
if anything
robot.
that bad robot, exactly. So if anything that those early tests just validated it that it's going to fail. So if anything, your trust levels, because we're going through a period of trying to understand if this stuff works, the people like us here, the generation that are watching this,
Yeah,
our trust levels are not better, it's getting worse. Because we see the Honda robot, going face planting on stage, so we go, oh, robotics, well, I mean, it's not quite ready yet. But so I think there is a cultural shift to happen as well, which I think will follow that.
Yeah, and I think that's true with any technology. Like whenever something's on the cutting edge, something's being developed, it's going to make mistakes and it's going to cause trust issues until it just
Yes.
becomes normal all of a sudden. Um,
Yeah.
I read something relevant a few days ago. It said that there's two types of robots, let's say. The first robot was in a factory where you'd
Yep.
fix it to the floor. It has to pick this thing up from here, put it
Yep.
there, tape it up, and send it. Just that
Yep.
task. It keeps doing. It's in space. It's not in anyone way. It's not in
Yep.
anyone's way. It's not a danger to anyone. And that's the first kind of robot.
Yep.
The second kind of robot is similar to the one in the house, the vacuum in the house,
Yep.
in which it has sensors on it, in
Yep.
which it can, and that's where AI comes in as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
robot will look at things through
Yes.
cameras, it will
Yes.
identify things through AI, and it will
Yes.
know whether that's a task for the robot or not for the robot. And if it
Yes.
is for the robot, it will perform the task it's programmed to do. And if it's not, it will move on and look for the next task. And
Yes.
I think that's where robot AI and autonomy comes in for those robots.
Yes.
So you could find a
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
robot just walking around and identifying things of what to do
Yes.
next. I'd love
Yes.
one like that in the kitchen, but just so less chores to do. But I think
But it's
we're pretty close to that. In
yeah,
fact,
I think so because and there's certainly places like we were in Japan a couple of years back, and we were in restaurants where you walked in and effectively a robot comes up to you. It's
yeah.
it's an iPad on wheels,
Okay.
but there's so much behind it. To your point, it knows where I am. It knows I'm a customer. It knows it needs to ask me something, and it can translate what I'm saying into a thing, and then it trundles off, and then it takes you to a table. You sit down, and then then the food comes your way. So it's kind of like very basic, but that's certainly not AI. But it's not too big a jump then for that then to be wandering around and saying, right, I'm not just going to monitor the restaurant now, and I'm going to see if there's glasses that need filling and all the rest of it. And so I think that's we're both kind of talking about it when there's a kind of conjunction of technology and software,
Yeah.
and it happens at the right time. You get this quick acceleration, and it feels like we're in that space now for robotics where we're going to get a quick acceleration, and like when drones suddenly flying everywhere. We
Yeah.
had no drones, and then suddenly like, there's drones everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
What happened there?
yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't invented overnight. It was just the mechanical and the software just caught up to each other at the right time,
Yep.
and then it took off. Haha, literally took off. And
Yeah.
that's a joke. There, we need to mark the
To go.
jokes. Yeah,
Okay. I was too
that's
much
all right. That's
into
all
it.
right. It's too so.
I was thinking about the fact that we've, just as you said, that we've aced the mechanical part of things. Like we can make
Yeah,
something, a robot, a machine, do what we want it to do.
yeah,
We're just on the edge, the precipice of the AI bit of the puzzle,
yes,
so that it knows what to do itself.
yes,
That's what I was thinking about while you cracked that joke.
yeah,
So,
yeah. There you go. So we may as well end it on that lovely car crash of a joke, because it's not going to get better. That's for sure.
you can try again next time.
Um, so I hope everyone enjoyed that, and we'll talk soon. Right, take care, everyone.